right, we'll call the meeting to order. Good evening, everyone. This is the February 14th regular meeting. After this meeting concludes, then we'll move into the committee of the whole agenda items that we have here. Announcement that we had executive session prior to this on some confidential matters related to expulsions, student matters, and legal topic. Please rise and join me to say the pledge, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. So on the phone, we do have attending remotely Mr. Norcross and Dr. Dillers online. And Mr. Leonards had informed us he would be out of town this week. So that's who Ed and Sherry, you know who's here. It's we have Carl, myself, Faye, Ben, and Lance in the room. All right, 2.03, may I have a motion to adopt the agenda? And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any items that need to be adjusted? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. All right, agenda is adopted. May I have a motion to approve the minutes at 3.01?
I move to approve the minutes.
Thank you.
Second.
Second, thank you. Any comments, questions, discussion about the minutes? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, minutes are approved. 4.01, recognition of Eagle Scout honor.
Thank you. Before I call the young people up to receive a recognition, I just want to review a little bit about the Boy Scouts. I'm 58 years old and I forgot a lot of this. So when I was looking at it this week, I said, you know, the crowd needs to really know about the Boy Scouts of America. So this information came from the Boy Scouts website, but also Wikipedia, which I know young people is not an approved research site. So, but I'm still using it because it was pretty good. But I just want to say the Boy Scouts of America, or BSA, is one of the largest scouting organizations in the world. You have over 1.2 million young people in this organization. The BSA was founded in 1910. And since then, about 110 million Americans have participated in the program. That's an awesome program for 110 million young people to be a part of it. The stated mission of the Boy Scouts of America is to prepare young people to make ethical and moral choices over their lifetimes by instilling in them the values of the Scout, oath, and law. Youth are trained in responsible citizenship, character development, and self-reliance through participation in a wide range of outdoor activities, educational programs, and career-oriented programs as the young people get older. What you have earned is really special. The Eagle Scout is the highest rank one can earn in the Scouts. Since its introduction in 1911, the Eagle Scout rank has been earned by more than 2 million youth. If you think about it, that's not very many since 1911. Requirements include earning at least 21 merit badges and demonstrating Scout spirit through Scout oath and law, like I said before. This includes an extensive project that you must do as well. And when I call the young people up, we're going to present them a certificate and a pin, but I also want to give them the microphone in order to allow them to be able to share what their project was in the community. So with this, I did want to say, of the 21 merit badges, they are required to earn 14 which include first aid, citizenship in the community, citizenship in the nation, citizenship in the world, citizenship in society, communication, cooking, personal fitness, emergency preparedness or life-saving, environmental science or sustainability, personal management, swimming, hiking or cycling, camping, and family life. In my opinion, when you look at people's applications for hire, and I see someone that has Eagle Scout on there, it really says a lot about commitment, hard work, and dedication. And they always seem to be really good applicants as well, and when they go through the interview process, that gives them a step up, in my opinion. So, young people, as I asked for your name, would you come as I go around the front? Peyton Baker, Bennett Kinlan, William Hand, Nathan Phillips, Cody McDonald, and Mark Moretti. You want to come? If you would like to come up and Sure. Peyton Baker. Bennett Kinlan. Right here, right here. Just like graduation. William Hand. Congratulations. Nathan Phillips. Nathan Phillips. Congratulations. Cody McDonald. Congratulations. And Mark Moran. Congratulations. So at this point, we want to get some pictures with everyone, but I do want to give them the opportunity because I will tell you what, they have earned this. They have earned this a lot, so given just a couple minutes to allow them to share what they did for their project is really key.
So for my Eagle Scout project, so last summer I redid a campfire at a Christian camp that I attended to many years ago, or for the past couple years. It was just falling apart and stuff, so I put up some new I put up some trees and planks. Sorry, I'm stuttering right now. I didn't plan on this.
Welcome to education.
Yeah. So we put up a lot of mulch and stone, and this past summer I worked there, and we got to use the campfire for other people. We worked with other kids, high school, middle school, elementary, and basically building their relationship in Christ and stuff. So it was overall really well.
My name is Bennett Kinlan, and for my Eagle project, I led a group of volunteers in constructing osprey nesting platforms at Letterkenny Army Depot to hopefully benefit the osprey population and various other populations.
My name is William Hann. I took a parcel box, which is just a small mailbox, and we created it into a retired flag collection box, which I put in front of AMPET's Post 224. Since we put it in, we collected about 5 or so totes of used, worn, destroyed flags, and we were planning on retiring them through a ceremony, but unfortunately we had to hand the keys over to a different troop.
Hi, my name is Nathan Phillips. My project was bringing the medical outreach program, well, I guess not program, medical outreach at Five Forks Church back to life, which included kind of going through their inventory, figuring out what needed fixed, what just wasn't needed, and coming up with a way to get that medical equipment out to others safely and as quickly as possible.
Hello, I'm Cody, and for my project, I did a project out at Caledonia on the Ramble Trail. I fixed up steps leading up to a bridge and added a railing and added stones on the path up to the bridge to make the trail more accessible for people and hikers.
Hi, I'm Marco, and for my Eagle Scout project, I built a Gaga Ball pit, which is an octagon where teenagers play a popular game called Gaga Ball. I built it at the Career Magnet School, which is the school I go to expand the gym class program and to help teens socialize and make new friends.
Super. Let's give them a round of applause. Congratulations. Thank you. Congratulations. Congratulations, Bear. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Anyone wants any photos real quick? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for coming.
Again, thank you for coming. It's great to hear how youth are continue to be such involved in society, giving back. The Boy Scouts, a wonderful organization. I've been involved with them in the past, and as a parent, I can appreciate also what you guys got to go through with my son having reached the Eagle Scout rank. So, truly a special time. Congratulations. Okay, 4.02 Franklin County Impact Grant. Ms. Lynch.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to bring forward Mr. Hoffman and Ms. Holmes to the front. Many of you have already seen the press release that's come out from the county that the CASD Foundation received a grant for $40,000 through the Impact Grant Fund. That's a pass-through fund through the county. And I think it's important when you see on my board report that the foundation received a grant, I think it's important that you understand the background and that we celebrate these folks who did the bulk of the work and the research while they were still on their summer vacation. So for those of you that don't know, the foundation is a 501c3 organization that's that we work in support of the school district. And I also have with me this evening our foundation board president, Sherry Carney, and she'll come up when we get to the photo opportunity piece. So the teachers were doing the research, they had seen the announcement in the public opinion, and they reached out to Tammy Stauffer and asked who in the district could help. Well, this specific funding stream, you cannot be a public school entity, you have to be a 501c3 organization, so herein comes the partnership. So I've been doing some very basic grant writing for about 25 years, and I can tell you that I've never had a budget itemized to the very penny like the one that I received from these two folks. Ms. Holmes is a Camp South librarian. Mr. Hoffman is an 8th grade science teacher. And in their, again, I have to keep saying, in their free time, because teachers do work in the summer, they put together so much wonderful documentation that we were able to put together an application that was funded by the county in the amount of $40,000. The other thing I'd just like to mention is that you can send your grant writer to 10 different courses and they can have this certificate and that certificate, but if you don't have a passionate call to action, the odds of being funded are slim to none, because you can only, as my former supervisor used to say, you know, you can put a bow on the package, but if the package isn't worth opening, people aren't going to be excited about funding you. So the information that they put together that we were able to dovetail into our grant writing process really is the reason that it was funded. So on paper, it appears that Angie Lynch wrote a grant for $40,000. I want the community to know that these two teachers certainly did 90% of the work, to be sure, probably 95%. If you're counting me putting the stamp on the envelope. So I just wanted to have an opportunity to do the big check presentation with them, with Sherry, with some representative from the district and the board. And the county did ask us to be very mindful of sharing that this was the impact grant funding line item and that we share this far and wide, that the county has supported us. And also, we will be doing phase 2 of photo op. You didn't realize you were going to be stars by the end of this funding cycle. It is a 2-year grant, and we will have additional photo ops with our county commissioners at a later date once they schedule that with us. So if we could just do the big picture. Thanks to Brian Miller for coming in on Valentine's Day to get the picture.
Sure.
Sherry, you can come on up, please. So as we're getting the picture set up, if you could just give these two awesome folks a round of applause, I would really appreciate it.
Always a great way to start meetings. All right, 5.01 President's Report. So briefly, just a few things. Reminder that we want to run orderly meetings, and what that entails is for proper decorums, remaining seated during the meeting, not distracting others that are paying attention to conversations or discussion, et cetera. And I do, we'll have to keep it, receive feedback that sometimes I'm too generous with the extra 3 minutes. I allow it to go on, so I'm going to start to enforce the 3 minutes public comment section consistently. So practice ahead of time and keep it to 3. Then we had the snow day since our last board meeting, where it was a little bit of difficult transportation-wise. Just a reminder, we got some emails from the community. Just a few that I wanted to address. One had said that Mr. Woodman, who's not here tonight, needs to keep the students' safety in mind. And I'm like, that's a little bit, I can't think of a word other than ridiculous, because that is always on the top of the mind. The reality is the call as to whether to keep schools open or to close them has to be made at it's like 5:30 or something.
That's correct.
At the time, they make the best decision with the best data that's available. And sometimes weather changes. So I think overall, it was just things changed, and everybody did the best we could. But there were some situations where people were stuck, and they worked through it in an orderly fashion. Last thing is Mr. Norcross normally would jump in here real quick, but I'll say that we completed for the superintendent's position. We completed interviews, and the board will be meeting next week on Monday night to discuss next steps. So we should hopefully have more with that at the next meeting, because that would be 28th, I believe, yes. So that's what I have. Dr. Long for 502.
Yes, thank you. This week is Kindness Week in our elementary buildings and also the other buildings as well. But at the elementary level, we are doing kindness tunnels. And with the ones that I've been able to attend so far, the kids light up as they are going through the tunnels, basically. And it's basically many different adults that have been invited, fire department, police department, our police department, board members have been invited, and other volunteers within the school. And we line the hallways and we clap for the students as they enter into the building. It just brightened the day. Today we were at Buchanan, and those kids just lit up because there were quite a few young people from the high school as well. The football team was there. Some of the football team and cheerleaders, some of the cheerleaders were there, and they've been going around to different places throughout this week. So it's really neat to see young people plus adults being centered around education and the students. It's funny that Angie presented here because I do have a thank you to Ms. Lynch for what she's been doing for the different people that have come to us about grants. She's been able to help out in many different situations on helping them find different grants and actually giving them point of views to put in the grants. And I know she's doing an awful lot for different areas in the community as well. So I just want to publicly say thank you to Ms. Lynch. We want to congratulate our Trojan wrestling team. They went to states. They placed in the top 8. They did not place in the top 3, but in the top 8, they don't have 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. So they're somewhere in there. And this is really neat that during the tournament, they were able to win Mr. Menser, Coach Menser's 100th win. So this was really neat for them. The picture was taken there, and the team really rallied around one another. And it was really neat to see the attributes of a team through Mr. Menser's coaching and the team just really rising to the occasion to get them to the state tournament. We also just heard that the boys basketball team is going to the District 3 finals, so we're going to have playoffs here on Tuesday evening at the Cassius. So that's going to start us out Tuesday evening. So if you want to come to that, it'll be a good game with, and I'm not sure who it's against, so you'll have to be looking for that. I'm sorry, I can't tell you who it's there, so I don't know. But today is a special day. Today is Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day means that you need to show love to one another. And I just want to thank our staff members, all staff members, teachers, support staff, cafeteria, custodial, bus drivers, administrators, everyone within the school district. We're here because of young people and students. Those young people really need mentors, and I appreciate all the people that are working in our district. I also appreciate the board when you get involved at the schools, because that really means an awful lot to the community when we show the love to our students. And I just appreciate that. Our staff does an amazing job, and I just want to send kudos to them and thank you on Valentine's Day. Thank you also for attending a board meeting on Valentine's Day. You must not have a very good marriage like me. Tomorrow night's going to be Valentine's Day. So I have a great marriage. But thank you very much. And I just want to say that I appreciate these young people. Once again, these are we had Cadman who received a recognition last year, and we have some other ones as well. And they're our future leaders. So thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Dr. Long. 6.01, members of the audience are invited to comment on agenda items. There's a few more folks in the audience than what are on the sign-up sheet. I have 5, none of whom had indicated they have something to say on the items on the agenda. Okay. So we'll make sure see if anybody raised their hand. All right, so we'll come back to that. There's some on the next section. All right, section 7, consent agenda. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items? Or hold on, let me ask, is there anything that anybody needs to have pulled for separate discussion? Okay, hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items?
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, and a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, roll call vote, please. And we recognize Mr. Norcross might be driving, so it could be a little pause between his name being called and the response.
Okay.
And just be careful, Mr. Norcross.
Dr. Diller,
Yes.
Ms. Gogler,
Yes.
Mr. McKee,
Yes.
Mr. Norcross.
Yes, I'm still parked at my desk, though.
Okay,
okay.
good.
Mr. Raber,
Yes.
Dr. Schur,
Yes,
and Mr. Walker.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
thank you. And good to know that you're at your desk instead of taking this in the car. 8.01, may I have a motion to approve the personnel actions as presented?
Move to approve.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? Anything that needs to be brought up? I got booted out, so I'm rebooting or joining in the meeting again. All right, hearing no questions, roll call vote, please.
Ms. Gogler?
Yes.
Mr. McKee?
Yes.
Mr. Norcross?
Yes.
Mr. Raber?
Yes.
Dr. Scher?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
And Dr. Diller?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, thank you. 9.01, committee reports. So Mr. Norcross will start with those on the phone. We'll go with you first. Anything for the order? Go to the order.
Just Career Tech Center. Last meeting, we had a fabulous update from Mr. Wagaman, who heads up the building construction trades group, and the projects, mainly the project that those students have been doing. And it's just a great presentation. And I thank my colleague, Mrs. Gogler. I know she mentioned something to Matt about getting Chambersburg on that dole as well, and see if we can get some of that good labor. And Mr. Wagman's very good at getting grants. So thank you, Mrs. Gogler, for putting that out to our buildings and grounds folks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Norcross. Dr. Diller.
No report.
All right, Mr. McKee.
No report.
All right, I didn't have any either, other than we had the Lincoln Intermediate Unit meeting. I was out of town on business and not able to attend. Mrs. Gogler.
No report.
Okay, Mr. Walker.
None.
Okay, sure. Okay, none there. And again, going with these twice a month, I recognize committees just might not have met, so the fact that there's not a report doesn't indicate anything that's bad or wrong. All right, members of the audience invited to comment on non-agenda items. I got Mrs. Jordan.
I have several bullet points. I'm going to only go through a few, and then I'm going to email them. And I know Dr. Scher doesn't read my emails, but I think he does. Now, this is only to 7 of the 9 board members. I'm excluding Mr. Walker and Mr. Raber here. Now, I'm going to skip through some of these. Your ignorance of knowing school budget knows no legal bounds. Your ignorance of knowing or getting to know your taxpayer base knows no legal bounds. I come from New Jersey. So what? My taxes trump many of yours several times over. As Ed Norcross has stated to me, I live in Penn National. Well, I bet that taxpayers in Penn National pony up their school taxes with no questions asked. How about in some of the other neighborhoods around this school district? There is delinquency in paying school taxes here too. Your acceptance of all taxpayers is mocked by some of you, which means me. You are no friend of the students or staff within our school district. Your micromanaging knows no legal bounds. You gladly took my $3,800 in school taxes for fiscal year 2022-2023, then you don't use all of it for its intended purposes, the students and the staff. I can't help but think you discussed Mr. Marvin Worthy in executive session, even though that would be against the law to do. You broke the sunshine law with me with a quorum of 5 board members at a committee meeting. No public comment was on the agenda, and 5 of you talked. That's a public meeting. And I couldn't talk. And Dr. Betts allowed me to talk at committee meetings. So there's that too. You can't be a successful elected official or be cocky. The two don't go hand in hand. Several of you on this board are just that, cocky. Your suggestions to the staff don't make you better qualified than they are. If your suggestions do, I'd like to see your teaching credentials now. Board members simply listen while asking this from the staff. What do you need? We'll get it for you. You need to start listening to your experts, the school officials, or actually sit in place of them and not at this board table. Before you hand me a press release from the PA Association of School Board Officials, please read your 2022-2023 adopted budget first.
Okay.
That's for you, Mrs. Gogler.
Thank
And one
you
more
very much.
thing,
I did say we're going to cut it off at 3 minutes.
676
Okay, next-
apartments
next
are
up.
coming into this
Okay,
school
Mrs.
district.
Jordan, you're exceeding the time, as I said at the beginning.
You don't have to be so rigid there, Dr.
I
Scher.
haven't been rigid for a long
yes,
time,
you
but
have.
it's okay.
being
Next
rigid
one
now.
up is Cademan B. If I'm reading it correct. I'm sorry? Cadman B. No? Okay. All set then. Thank you. That adjourns the regular meeting. Just to call out, as you should see up here and on handouts, that there are some information items of 4 policies that have been reviewed, and I think they were deemed to have not needed any updates. So still current, in other words. All right, we'll move to the committee of the whole. We'll start with item 1.01, the therapy dog program. So I know, just to kind of tee it up briefly, we talked about this in policy committee, and kind of differences of opinions as to about the program, et cetera. And I looked at this as a kind of 2 parts. One is just the concept of a therapy dog program in general. And I thought it was important for the board to be able to hear the presentation and then be able to provide thoughts and input on just any things of concern, anything we like, that type of thing for the program. And thank you.
Thank you. My name is Audra Hochreiter, and I am one of the 12th grade counselors at the high school right now. And starting next year, I'll have 9th grade, and I'll go with those students throughout their 4 years. And that is a picture of my dog, Harbor. She is an almost 3-year-old black lab. And what I'm going to do, Dr. Long told me keep it to 10 minutes, and I'm guessing I went well over that when I talked to the policy committee. So we're briefly going to look at the definition and requirements of a therapy dog, the difference between therapy, service, and emotional support dogs, and then my proposal for caches. So a therapy dog is a highly trained dog whose basic purpose is to provide affection and comfort. They have no special rights in establishments other than where they provide services, and they are someone's pet that has been extensively trained to pass a certification test. You might hear them referred to as a facility dog, and a facility dog is basically the same, but they are owned by the facility where they work. A therapy dog is typically registered through a therapy dog organization, and if the handler is trained, they can be used in additional therapeutic animal-assisted interventions that are mentioned within the slides. I think we're a few pages. I'm rolling through this. The requirements of a therapy dog, besides being registered, is that they need to pass a test. They have to be medically cleared by a veterinarian. Handlers, depending on the program, may also have to pass a course, and then handlers have to have the clearances and background checks appropriate for the facility. Therapy dogs are very well trained. They have to willingly accept and seek attention. They need to be good with all people. They have to be tolerant of other dogs in case there's more than one dog at the facility. They cannot react negatively to loud noises, can't be easily distracted. They have to behave calmly around different types of equipment, and they have to accept handling around all areas of their body. The advantages of having a therapy dog in school: research shows that they relieve stress, they can boost attendance, decrease anxiety, lower blood pressure, ease social isolation, and help students with social skills, and increase serotonin and dopamine levels. What therapy dogs are not are service dogs or emotional support animals, and I think this is kind of where some of the confusion comes in. Most people know service dogs, guide dogs, military dogs, police dogs. Those are not pets. They are owned by an organization. They cost $15,000 to $30,000 to train. They are defined, some of them are defined under the Americans with Disabilities Act, and they do have special rights to enter establishments that other animals cannot. And once their service is finished, then they are returned to the organization or can be adopted out. An emotional support animal is typically someone's pet who is then prescribed by a licensed medical professional to help an individual. They do not require any necessary training, vet clearances, testing, or anything like that. They can travel into establishments or on planes or stay in hotels and things like that with approval from the management of those organizations. Where I see the current problems being is that people abuse particularly the emotional support animal role. You can go online and get a fake paper stating that your animal's a emotional support animal, and then people take their untrained animals into places that dogs and other animals have no business, and that's what turns people off to this program. And it attracts negative attention to both emotional support animal, legitimate emotional support animal programs, as well as therapy dog programs. So why do I want to bring a program to Caches? I really just want to connect kids to school. It is very important that students are connected. We've been presenting to the 8th grade, and Peyton, who was here earlier, is one of our presenters, and he said, you have to get connected, and all of our students have said that. You need to get connected in school, and some students have a really hard time doing that. And I think that this program lends itself to connecting students to school. For the district, I feel like it's really good publicity, both for the school and for the district. I also recommend it because I am willing to do this at no cost. I have paid for all the costs to train. I will pay for the cost to certify, and I will pay for the cost to insure my dog for this program. There has been a big demand for therapy dog programs coming out of the pandemic. Locally, Big Spring School District has had a dog for a few years. Shippensburg, my understanding is they have one at their intermediate school, and then they have a facility dog, and then they're on a waiting list and raising funds to purchase another one, which is about $5,000 to purchase the dog. And then they are hoping to have 3 or 4. So I think that the benefits of doing this, and the reason that I am recommending the course of action where it's up to the handler to pay for everything, is because that limits people who just want to bring their dog in, and that's not really my purpose. There is a policy attached here, and the way that's written, it would require anybody else who would want to get involved in a program like this to take on all the costs for everything themselves. So I see Harbor's role at Caches to be determined as she gets adjusted to the size of the building. It's a large building, and it's going to take a little bit of time for her to get used to that. But I would like to have student assistance through our service learning and co-op program with the potential for them to get certified as handlers. I would like to see her used as an incentive for individual students or groups of students. We have the HERO program, and students get to spend the points or their HERO points that they earn on different things, and I could see that as a reward to spend some time with the dog. I would like to have her help students build their self-confidence and sense of responsibility, and then just to have her there for students who need just a couple of minutes to collect themselves and get back to class. I think it's important for my students to be in class, and sometimes they just need a couple of minutes, and I feel like that would be, I feel like Harbor would be a big help in that, and I think you have to have a person who's willing to tell a student when it's time to go back. This is not a get out of class kind of program. So I see for the rest of the year, if she would be able to come in, starting with 1 day a week and kind of increasing that to see how many days a week she is tolerant to. Some dogs come in every day, some dogs come 2 days a week. You kind of have to wait and see what the dog's level of ability to stay in school all day is. And then after she's adjusted to the building, using just different forms, Google Sheets, to have teachers sign up for visits at this point, and then kind of survey students and faculty to see how they see her best fitting into our large building, and what she can do for us. I'm open to suggestions. I'm always looking at different groups I belong to and talking to other schools to see what they're doing based on the size of their buildings and things like that. And then the last couple of pages just talk about safety things. Of course, there would be an opt-out for any student who had an allergy or a fear of animals. And of course, we would keep her out of any place that they make food, just because of, not because I'm worried that she would go after anything, but just for the hygiene purposes. The last 2 pages are just some articles and then some links to some videos that are available that I think show a good illustration of a program like that.
Good. So I'll start with a question, if I may. So in your research, have you said others, Big Spring, I think, was one that has a therapy dog. There's probably been places where you tried it and it didn't work. What were some of those, if you know of any, what were some of those derailers where it just didn't work out?
I think it would be, again, the integrity of a program. I know somebody at Big Spring, and they had a little bit of a setback with their dog because the handlers, so in their case, they had a dog that came to them trained, so it wasn't somebody's pet. They purchased that dog for the already trained, and so their handlers probably weren't as educated on the training and the importance of practice, much like you do, for any sport or anything else. You have to continue to practice things, and so they had a bit of a setback on the dog with their commands, and so they have trained additional handlers, and they go through, extra practice and things like that, just so that they are keeping up with what they need to do. And I think that would be the biggest thing, is making sure that the dog is serving its purpose.
Do you think the guidelines that you've laid out, are they that would be applicable or could be applied to other scenarios where if you had somebody in the community that would come in and like, your dogs where you're at, you said this is targeting caches. We know that there's ones that's like reading to dogs, et cetera. So that could also be a guide, right? For
Absolutely.
How would we discern, hey, this is a program. Somebody calls us and says, I want to come into this school. We don't have anything today. So the policy that you drafted would be like a guidelines to help us discern what would be acceptable and what we probably should avoid.
Absolutely. And along with that, there is a form to fill out to have for the school. And it's renewable every year. And so I think that would be a good place to start, to make sure that anybody that wanted to come in has all of the proper, they've vetted the dog, basically, to make sure that it is certified and trained and has been checked by a vet and all of those things. I think that would be a good thing for any school to have.
I don't want to hog all the questions. Let's stay here in the room first. Mr. McKee, do you have any over here? Any questions, feedback, comments?
I already expressed mine at policy committee meeting.
Yeah, I'll just say, I think this is excellent. I want to thank you for the initiative that you're taking. It shows real leadership skills, and we appreciate the work that you put into pulling all this together.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question. Is this dog going to be with you all the time, like your complete work day? Like you're the handler and you're the person that has it all day?
At this time, yes. In my proposal, there is a place where there's a possibility of certifying additional handlers. One of the reasons for that would be if there's any sort of reason that I couldn't be with the dog. For instance, if I had a student that needed me, that had a severe allergy or was deathly afraid of dogs, I would need to have somebody else that was certified to be with her at that time. And then I've also looked into the possibility once you have to be 18 to become a handler. So to certify perhaps some of the senior students, I explained in the policy committee that if that were the case, my intention would be to still be in the room when I had a student handling her, but then I may be able to answer email during that time. But I would, because of the liability, because I'm accepting all of the liability, I would very much limit who else I would allow to be certified to handle my dog.
Yeah, I hear you're accepting the liability, but I think the liability would eventually go back on the district as well. I think there would be liability from both ends perhaps, but not sure of that. I guess when I'm seeing all these different things you'd like to do with the dog, how will that pull you away from your current job responsibilities?
I think that is something that we have to kind of wait and see. To begin with, of course, like I said, the dog would be with me, and so in that circumstance, it would be, you know, students needing to come to me. I have students in and out of my office all day long as it is, and that was a concern that Mrs. Gogler brought up as well. And my explanation to that is I know that my job comes first, and there are certain things that I need to accomplish every day. And so if there's a necessity for me to work beyond my regular hour to make that happen because of whatever is going on with the dog, those are adjustments I'm willing to make. That's why I'm saying I don't know if she would be here 5 days a week. She may be 1, it may be 2. We would have to wait and see. And I know that's a scary unknown to put in front of you. But I feel like, and I think Dr. Long could attest to this, there probably isn't anybody else that would be willing to say, I'll do whatever it takes to make this happen and truly mean it. And if it doesn't work, then I'm willing to accept that. But you know, because I've seen it work in other schools and I don't see people turning away from it, I feel like there has to be a way to make that balance and make sure that everything gets done that needs to get done.
Have you done any volunteering around children with your dog?
I have not, because I am paying for all of the training that needs to be done. There is one more training that I need to do with her, which is going to cost me about $1,000. And so I'm kind of at this point where, because I only want to bring her here, I don't want to take her to hospitals or anything along those lines. I'm kind of in this holding pattern to say, do I spend this $1,000 so I can tell you that she's ready to go into school, or do I wait for you to say, yes, we're ready to have her come in, go ahead and spend that $1,000. So that's kind of where I'm at with it at this point.
Yeah, I just didn't know, like, I do know, I've been around it where they've taken them in, dogs have come into elementary schools on a, you know, just an infrequent basis to read with kids, and, you know, and the kids like it, but it also takes quite a bit of time when a student enters your room and you have a dog. It'll calm them perhaps, but at the same time, it also they want to play with the dog. So it's a hard call. Plus, if you're needed in an emergency, you have a dog. So you know what I mean? Like, I don't know how much you get pulled at the high school to go take care of situations outside of that area. So there's just logistically, I think there's things that have to be worked out.
Yeah, I definitely understand that, and I would definitely ask those questions of the groups that I belong to and the schools that I belong to kind of see how they work that out. Like I said, I do plan to get somebody else certified, and that could be my co-counselor and my principal, whose offices are on either side of me, so that if there would be a situation where I needed to leave the dog, I would feel comfortable leaving her with one of them.
Dr. Dillard, love the questions, because I think this is an example where having multiple people on the board are able to come up with a variety of questions and think of situations of, well, what about this? And, you know, even from a policy perspective. Any
Yeah,
others,
and
please?
at that point, if you're pooled, though, I wouldn't want a principal or an assistant principal to be responsible for the dog, because in the end, they're probably in the emergency situation to begin with. What would be nice is if we could start something out where what I'm used to is a volunteer bringing them in, perhaps not the employee, because the employee has their own job responsibilities to take care of. It'd be wonderful if you could find somebody that would work with your dog and bring them in certain situations that you might need down the road, but not on a regular basis. But anyway, this is new. I just found out about this, you know, through reading through it. But thank you. You have a lovely dog.
Thank you.
Mr. Norcross, any comments, questions, thoughts?
Yeah, I'll start with a comment first, that I don't feel we're anywhere close to having enough information to make a decision. That's Ed Norcross's personal opinion. And so when you make a statement like that, people says, well, what are your questions? So, I mean, the insurance was brought. I really vetted out both by, you know, our counselors' personal insurance, and then what our insurance professionals say that we need, or what's the minimum we need the handler to have first. So that's one thing that really needs to be vetted out here, and I doubt that's a real quick answer. My other question, and this is going to have to come from admin, I think, is I struggle with we, the Chambersburg School District, how as a district we would be able to segregate staff, building spaces, and students with allergies. I don't know, it seems like there are more and more allergies to you name it every day, but you know, pet allergies is a common one. And you know, do we have to then start excluding students from certain areas of the building because, you know, maybe a pet or an animal was there? I can see that getting really dicey, and I'd like to hear and see what the admin would do, you know, how that would be handled. And another part from the admin I'd like to hear is, okay, are there limitations on which employees, you know, can bring a therapy animal? You know, if you have an animal that's fully trained and you have a handler that's fully certified and you work in food service, can you bring your therapy animal? That might be a bit of a reach, but it's all stuff that when you have 1,100 employees as a public entity, we really need to have all of our I's dotted and T's crossed. And then my last thought and question, and it was just brought up here in the recent answer, was that I don't, and this is more of a personal concern, I don't know if I'm real warm and fuzzy that Chambersburg School District will be the testing facility for therapy animals first sessions. That concerns me as well.
Great. Okay.
That was a lot of questions. So going back to the last question about this being her first experience as a therapy dog. Like I said, they do need to be certified. The trainer that I've spoken to that I would be working with is a former police canine officer, a veteran who had canines in Iraq. He trains dogs for a living. Well, one of his jobs, he's about to be a dog warden in another county, and he also has trained and had therapy dogs. And he has evaluated my dog and said that she has the qualities that she needs. There just are some specific things related to what a therapy dog needs to know that we would need to work on. So I feel pretty confident that he's a pretty, he kind of tells you how it is, and I feel like he would let me know whether or not she was ready to come in. He has also said that once we complete the training, if there was anything that anybody had any questions on, he'd be willing to answer. He said I could pass along his contact information if anybody wanted to call him, and that he would be willing to come into the school to work through any issues or concerns that we had. So that, to me, I feel like we can answer all of those various questions. The liability as well, I don't think it's a quick answer, but it's definitely something that we can get to. There are a couple of different ways that school boards go. Some take on some amount of liability, some pay for liability insurance for the dogs, and some kind of step away from all of that and put it back on the handler. So there are some different scenarios that I can get you information on as far as that goes. What other questions? Allergies? Oh,
Yeah.
yes. So most school districts send an active or a passive opt-out, I think it's called. So they say, hey, we're going to have this therapy dog. If you have any concerns, allergies, fears, please send this letter back or contact, and that person would be me. And then I keep a list and make sure that my dog does not come in contact with those people. There are different things you can do. So typically people are allergic to dander, and there are wipes that you can wipe the dog down before you come in, and then of course clean the office when you leave and that sort of thing. And it would be the dog that would be restricted within the building, and definitely not the students.
Well, good. And again, my hope of Mr. Norcross, did you have another question? I didn't want to cut you off if you did. Okay. My hope of
I appreciate the answers, and I didn't. I share my thoughts to everyone, and not expecting you to answer all the questions. As I said, a lot of this I need to hear more administration how this is going to be, how this would be administered and guidelines.
Yeah, and to follow what you had said, dotting I's, crossing T's, that's why I wanted to make sure that we could come here and just say, let's have a discussion, information presentation, and then what concerns do we have, et cetera, and be able to have those laid out, and then we can figure out what next steps would be. But at least we have had a discussion, and I think lots of great questions. Good.
All right, I appreciate your time, and if there are any further questions that I can answer, please feel free to reach out, and I can find you those resources and answers.
Will do. Great. Thank you. Okay, 1.02, again, on the Committee of the Whole meeting. Dr. Long, you have the next couple. You want to just crank through them? And
Sure. This is an approval of a grant agreement between the PA Department of Agriculture and our district for the amount of $1,500 that goes towards the greenhouse equipment at the high school. This grant was basically given to them through the Department of Agriculture because they need to upgrade the greenhouse.
So we'll do the pause, especially a little longer with 2 folks attending remotely. All right, move it to the consent agenda. Next one.
The next one is the Lincoln Edge. Lincoln Edge presented to our Curriculum and Instruction Committee a few months ago. They have an online program through the LIU that many districts are using for placements for students that are expelled. We are asking to use them. Their rates are between $6,500 for a year and $13,500 for special ed students. So that's quite different than some of the other placements we are using. They will also help our students with some counseling, and then also follow up if they're not doing their work. They'll be making phone calls and things like that to parents, trying to get them back online and doing their work.
All right, hearing no comments or questions, we'll put it to consent agenda. And again, if anybody looks at material after the fact and we got questions or whatever, just let us know. We'll either get them addressed prior to the next meeting or make it a separate item. 104.
This is a unique field trip for the Cassius softball team. They would like to go to a tournament in North Carolina. This is the first time that they're traveling to go to a tournament. But our softball team has been doing real well, and they would like to get some exposure from some different teams across the country. This is no cost to the district. It'll be paid for through the boosters.
I don't know that I have a concern other than I think it's not typical to have school sports travel this far. So I guess it's a comment I always think about from personal experience that you have travel teams, club teams, et cetera. But for a high school to go to North Carolina just seemed a little bit abnormal when I read this. But
It's a bit like band going to Orlando.
yeah,
I mean,
that's where I was kind of like,
is that comparable?
It's comparable
Drama
to
club
that.
going
You
to
got
New
the
York
band,
City.
you got the drama club going, as we proved last time, going to New
New
York.
York.
So I'm kind of like going, okay, there's other,
Yeah.
this is kind of like it, but still a little different, but could work with it.
It's a big trip.
Okay, we'll put it to consent agenda then.
Okay. 105 is Commander Apgar. They're going to Sterling High School in New Jersey for the drone competition. Once again, that is going to be reimbursable.
Oh, sorry, real quick on the prior one. It has, yeah, I'm sorry. Finish this one and I'll come back. Any questions on the 105? All right, I just glanced up and saw it. On the North Carolina one, 3 vans.
3 vans.
So that's district vans, and we're okay logistics-wise with 3 vans going out, I would presume? Someone? Like a
Yeah, I
Mrs.
would
Simon.
say if we don't use district bands, they would be contractors, but I'm assuming that this request has already been given to transportation, or it will be once it's approved.
Correct.
And so like the 19th, 17th, 18th, 19th, is that a weekend? I didn't check.
Yes.
Okay, so that should be minimal impact then. Okay, thanks. And apologies for jumping back. 106?
106 is a field trip.
Dr. Shore.
Yes, go ahead.
While you backed up to 104, so how does transportation get reimbursed to the district if it is truly no cost to the district?
Mr. Norcross, this is Mrs. Stauffer. We would bill the entity that's requesting the trip. So in this case, the bill would go to more than likely the coach, and then he would give it to the boosters, who would pay the district or the contractor directly.
Okay. 106?
106 is once again the JROTC traveling to the DC. They're going to an Air Force and Space Museum. I believe they're also, the trip has changed a little bit with the Friday folder that I sent out that John Joyce, I can't remember his representative, correct?
Yes.
Is meeting them and going to give them a little bit of a tour and things like that. Once again, that is going to be reimbursable.
Okay, next one.
107 is the same. They're a unique field trip for them to a high school in New Jersey for the drill and academic competition. Once again, that's reimbursable.
That's the same weekend as the, how are they getting there? Just want to make sure, and just connect that it's the
They-
same 17th, so there, we won't have a logistics challenge with vans and stuff?
No, this is going to be a bus.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on 107? Okay, thanks. 108, Mrs. Stauffer.
Yes, good evening. This is the proposed joint school service community center for the FLC, their 2023-2024 proposed general operating budget. If you note in the attachment, the daily rate, tuition rate is going up by $1.90 per student. Currently, we have this year 73 students who attend the FLC. The incremental cost is about $26,000 based on that number of students.
I had a question about the capacity of the FLC. If you note in the numbers, they have significantly, by about 30-some less students this year than they did in 2018-19 school year. And we have difficulty getting some of our children placed places and so on. And I was just curious, looking back at the construction of the building, I found information that said that the capacity was going to be 300 at that time in 1976, 1977. And now they can't take any of our students in addition to what we have there because they're full. It doesn't kind of add up that there's that many less students just within the last 3 years.
I believe it's staffing, correct?
I can't, I'm sorry, I can't answer that question.
I was told it was because they didn't have room.
Yeah, that would be more for our special ed folks
Yes.
to answer.
I can find that out for you.
Yeah, I had sent
Yeah.
a question to Cherie about it. Didn't get any response.
All right, so Dr. Long,
Yes, I'll find out.
you'll hit that one. And
Can I just add that,
Yeah.
a comment on that as well? In looking at some of our out-of-district placements and the distance that some of our students have to travel, I really would like to see the FLC offer some of the classrooms and provide some of the services that in the disability categories that we need beyond what they currently are doing. And actually, Faye, I'm glad you found that there's a 300 capacity, because we are really below capacity then in that building. So it's just something for the future to look at, so that some of our students that have needs, that classrooms could exist that would meet their needs at the Franklin Learning Center. We already have many there that are meeting needs, and that's great, but there may be a need for some expansion so that our kids aren't traveling so far. Thank you.
Yep. All right, Dr. Long has that, has both of them.
Yes.
All right. Any other questions on 108? Okay, 109, Mrs. Clever?
Yes, good evening. 109 is for the revision of policy 11, principles for governance and leadership. This is a policy revision that we received from PSBA. We receive these from time to time on a variety of policies to update language. I can tell you at our last policy committee, our committee members were very thoughtful and thorough with going through the current policy and the suggestions made by PSBA, and before you is the final draft recommendation.
Yeah, I'd say we did. Mrs. Gallagher did a lot of, I don't want to say research, but you went through it very meticulously, and I mean that in a good way, because there were some things that I had read the first time. I was like, oh, it's fine. But then when you had said what your thinking was behind something, and I don't even have any examples that made more sense. So it was a really good review. And as a board, we've established that this is something we rejected some of PSBA's changes because we just didn't like it. We didn't see the sense behind some of the recommendations. But we've established this as something that that we will renew annually. Purpose for that is just, and it's going to be a separate item on the agenda, and it'll be roll call. So that way it's almost our individual attestation that we've reviewed it and we are agreeing with it. Any questions? Okay, so separate line item on the agenda for that one. 110. So Mrs. Clever, just keep on rolling through the next couple on the
Yep,
policies.
sure, absolutely. 110 is revision of policy 241, early studies for college and universities. This particular policy was reviewed by Dr. Long, Mrs. Lautenslager, and actually Attorney Z also reviewed this policy. And again, the final draft is what you have before you this evening. 111 and 112 are policies that fall under Chief Carter's area, policy 805, emergency preparedness and response, and 805.2, school security personnel. And again, Chief Carter reviewed both policies, made suggested recommendations for updates, and again, those two policies are for your review.
Any questions on any of the ones we just touched on? Okay, move those to consent agenda. And Dr. Long, the next two, the softball fencing and then budget transfer for Wellspan.
Sure, this is approval of the bid that we went out for on the softball field fencing. This was from the Title IX compliance, and they gave us specifications according to what our other field, the baseball field and things like that, have for fencing. They wanted it to make sure it was safe, it didn't move. So this is a company that, this is the only company that bid on it based off of the requirements. And I believe it's $38,125.
All right, and we appreciate, continue working with Guilford on this at Norlow Park.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, consent agenda for that one, and 114?
114 is a request to transfer money, $100,000 to the athletics fund. What had happened was Wellspan sent their bill late as far as coming into the district from last year because of different things that happened between Wellspan and their computer system. It got here in late July, I believe, and then through some situations that happened, and I'm not going to bring them up, it wasn't paid until the purchase order was in late November, got paid in December. So with that, last year's budget turned in $126,000. And we owed $124,000, so we took $124,000 out of this year's to pay for last year's, but we're also paying the contracted $124,000 for this year. So right now, we have very little money left in the budget, and we need this to continue the sports program and also pay the rest of the Wellspan contract.
I think this is one of the ones covered at Finance Committee.
Correct.
Right?
And I don't know who brought it up because I was absent that night. So
Oh, that's right.
I just appreciate
Sure,
whoever
yes,
brought
it
it up.
was. Any questions on this? Kind of. All right. consent agenda then. 115. Mrs. Stauffer, I guess you pitching this one?
Yeah, I will do the next few. So 115 is just some additional contracted drivers that we'd like to get approved to drive for the 22-23 school year. And you have the list and which contractors they will be driving for.
No questions. I think it's always good to have a couple on the bench strength.
Yeah, absolutely.
Be able to pull it in at a time of need. So.
Okay.
There's the pause. So, all right, consent agenda.
116 is our agreement with WellSpan. This is a consortium agreement. This is for the random drug and alcohol testing that we do primarily. It is just for our contracted drivers and our bus drivers. This also includes pre-employment, post-accident, and reasonable suspicion. I cannot speak tonight.
Okay, consent agenda.
Okay.
Dr. Shore,
Yes, go ahead.
just a question that Mrs. Stauffer said something. So we do the testing for the contracted drivers. That's
Yep.
not part of the contract agreement?
Actually, I think I misspoke there, Mr. Norcross. This is for our district drivers. I apologize.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, 117.
117, we have a few drivers who are no longer driving for those contractors. You can see the list on the document. We're asking the board to allow us to remove them as from the approved list.
Always good to tidy the list. Hearing nothing, we'll 118. Mrs. Stauffer, still yours, I guess.
I think mic off. Yes, we presented to the Finance Committee at the February 1st meeting. Mr. Peters and Ms. Lynch presented and gave a brief history of Ms. Bowen. As you know, I believe it was in November, the board agreed to allow us to name the archive after Ms. Bowen. She has since passed away. We thought it would be a great thing to honor her just due to the amount of time of service, both paid and unpaid service to the district. We'd like to name the Reserve Center or the Armory Building after Ms. Bowen in appreciation and for her dedication to the district. And I don't know if Ms. Lynch wants to add anything or not.
Yeah. Nope, all good. I guess. Excellent. All right, 119 then.
It's 119. Again, this was presented at the February 1st committee meeting. At the June 22nd, 2021 board meeting, we received permission to place $401,000 into an assigned fund balance. The purpose of that was to complete some small capital projects over the summer. Those projects have been completed. There is a remaining amount of funds, just under $50,000, that we would like the board to allow us to reassign those and utilize that to replace one of the B&G vehicles, specifically 130.
Okay, hearing no questions, put that on consent agenda. And 120, Dr. Long.
Yes, for the move of people right now for the construction project at the administration building, we have used Cassius and other places within the district to place everyone, but we still have the curriculum department and the technology department that need space. We went to talk with Ms. Nitterhouse. She has a space available that's approximately 2,000 square feet. She's willing to lease that to us for the time period that we need between April and October, and it's $2,250 a month. That comes out to about $1.14 a square foot. So that's a very good price for us. And we would be able to put our curriculum and technology departments there so they can continue to work.
And the tax office, they gave us notice, right? Or
Yeah,
non-public?
correct.
Okay.
They did give us notice that they will not be returning.
So, all right, so, yeah, so when they pack up, then they're out, and then we'll ultimately have to figure out how we'll utilize that space.
That's correct.
Okay. Any questions on the Lord's Avenue lease agreement? All right. Cash's yearbook. Is Mrs. Stein here, so I guess you get the pitch for that, Ms. Stover?
Okay.
Or any questions about it?
I think this is just an information item, that the
yes.
agreement is expiring, and so we will be doing a request for proposal. She works with Mr. Ocker and some of his staff on that.
I have a question just for information purposes. Is there a policy that requires us to have this request for proposal process anytime an agreement is expiring? I know we had the same problem last year with Pictures Plus, and if the current vendor is satisfactory, if there's not a requirement to do a request for proposal, what's the point?
There's not a requirement under the existing school code that I know of. This is a service that is done through the student activities. This is probably the second or third one. I'm looking at Mr. Ocker if he can help me out here, because I can't remember. I know this is at least the second or third one that we've been through with the high school, and they like go out to determine, if there's something more available. I'm pulling you into the meeting because I don't know the specifics.
Is your question broader, though? Like, does the board need to see these RFPs?
No, my question is, why would we do a request for proposal if there's satisfactory working relationship with the company that you have? If there's no requirement, it just seems to me to be unnecessary effort and potential for some Timbuktu business having a slightly lower but not probably the reputation that we've had established for a period of time.
What's wrong with Timbuktu?
I don't even know where it's at.
It's a West Africa.
So almost like what I'm hearing, though, is when they go back for the contract, almost just set it for 3 years, but it can just be renewable, right? Unless there's, you can have some out terms or whatever that you have to notify.
If you're having poor service from a business, then I think, or if there's a requirement that you have to do it because of some law or whatever. But I just think I don't know, I just think it's a waste of effort if it's a satisfactory. And I don't know, I don't know in this particular case. I do know in the Pictures Plus situation that it was a highly positive relationship that the district had with Pictures Plus, and we almost lost that relationship to an unknown entity. And I don't know how long we've had Bell for. I tried to see some old yearbooks that I had who produced them and so on, and I couldn't even find that out. So I don't know how long Balfour has had them. I don't have any connection to Balfour. It doesn't matter to me. Yep. But I just think that sometimes we waste time and effort and create issues that could be easily avoided.
Good point.
So, to Brad, have students, parents, teachers been satisfied? Or is there a good reason to go through this process?
Turn your mic on, Brad.
I do believe we have been rather satisfied. The only thing that I would say is currently I think there's a change in reps, and sometimes that can create some concern. So I agree with what Mrs. Gogler said, though. It is nice when you don't have to keep changing companies because you do get very comfortable and you build those relationships, but it may not be a bad idea at this point in time, as I talk to our new yearbook advisor, to just look at what is available. We also work with Brad, I think his name Pate. He does a lot of our graduation gowns, and I think that they were the ones that came in and were interested in talking to us. So it could also be one of those deals where we could receive almost the same services, but maybe even for a better rate. And I would really, it'd be nice for me to know that we're not charging our students as much for essentially the same yearbook because of things, being pretty tight right now financially for a lot of families.
Yeah, I'm not objecting, I'm just throwing out a question.
Sure.
For general practice, it just,
Yeah.
I just compared it to last
Sure.
year's situation.
Sure.
Don't put undue strain on those relationships if we don't have to.
Right.
All right, so nothing to put on consent agenda since that was informational. 122, employee retirement incentive. Mrs. Glover.
Yep, hello again. So in order to get a jump on recruitment efforts this year, the district is looking at recommending an early submission for retirement incentive. I know with the help of Mrs. Stauffer, went back and looked at some of the archives, if you would, and I see that the district had done this previously. What we're looking at this time is proposing that if one of our CAEA bargaining unit members would submit their intent to retire at the end of the 22-23 school year and have that intent into us by March 15th, they would receive a $1,500 incentive. It would be a non-cash payment. The funds would be deposited into a 403B account. Obviously, we would have stipulations in place with the program. In addition to the deadline, it must be a retirement. They would no longer be looking at employment with any other Pennsylvania public school district. We were also looking that the individual would have to have a minimum of 5 years of service with the Chambersburg Area School District. And definitely they would have to work through the rest of the year and not leave until after the completion of the contracted year. One of the nice things, and that's why we kind of expedited this, so to speak, to have this discussion this evening, if this is something that the board would entertain in supporting, obviously it would be moved to the next regular board meeting, which I believe is scheduled for February 28th. If approved, we could go ahead and get that communication out. If we would have those intents in by that deadline of March 15th, that just nicely coincides with our job fair that we are going to be attending the following Wednesday in Pittsburgh. It is the largest recruitment fair for educators in the nation. This is going to be the first year since COVID that it is going to be held in person. We are very excited about it. So just having the knowledge of what our needs are going to be for next year when we attend that job fair, I think it's going to put us ahead leaps and bounds in fulfilling the staffing needs and getting ready for the 23-24 school year.
Questions? I think this was covered at personnel yesterday. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, we were all supportive there.
I think it's important that we get these retirement letters as early as possible so that we can go ahead and hire staff. And sometimes when we wait so late into the school year, we don't get some of the candidates. They go to other districts that could have come to Chambersburg had they gotten the first offer from Chambersburg. So I think it's an excellent idea going forward.
That's good.
One of the other issues that are questions that had come up, and I had an opportunity to talk to Attorney Z before the start of the meeting, and we would be securing an MOU with the CAEA Association.
Yeah, I think it's worth a try. I mean, I know we each year we have that you know, somebody, for what other circumstances are, we don't find out that they're going to retire until like really late. This is an opportunity for us to get things locked in, and you know, which benefits everybody. We're not scrambling. The teacher knows this is where they're going to be, and it just certainty. So I like the idea. And yeah, if we tried a year and you go, it just didn't reap the benefit that we thought, or whatever, then you don't do it the next year.
We had also added for, you know, evaluate it this year, and then for next year we would make some earlier dates and some minor changes to it, so that we even had an earlier date than the March date.
Okay.
Thank
so
you.
Are there, Mr. Norcross, did you have anything?
Yeah, just one question for Mrs. Clever that sounds to me like it'd be awful tricky, but can you actually enforce not going to work in another district? It sounds that sounds pretty difficult.
You are correct, and we did have that conversation of how we would monitor that, if we would have any check and balance in place, and it would be something that you are correct. It would be very difficult to hold someone to that, because we do have individuals that do go out on retirement, but they do not actually apply to receive their retirement funds until a later date, a year or two down the road.
All right.
Yeah, I guess I ask, is it even enforceable? You know,
I think
the right to work state.
I think it's something we could check on, and so let's put this. It sounds like conceptually we're okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Some logistics or details to work out, so let's have it as a separate item on the agenda for the 28th, with anticipation that you'll have some of these ironed out by then, and any other specifics. Mr. Norcross, did you have any other questions? I didn't want to cut you off.
Just maybe by the 28th, just on average, how many retirees do we have in a year's time?
Okay.
Yeah, I can go ahead and get that information for you for the 28th meeting.
Okay. Well, we'll move it ahead as I mentioned, and obviously if anybody has other questions that they'd like to, I thought of this, and nice to have that in the presentation, just shoot Mrs. Clever an email and let her know. All right, anything else?
Yes, I had a question relative to the ending of tutoring that's occurring at the end of February. I'm concerned that we need to find resources to continue beyond that date. These children, particularly the elementary children, need to have help in getting caught up, and we have money for everything that anybody chooses to spend the money on, and this is our mission, is education. And I just, you know, I just think it's unbelievable that we are not funding the tutoring that's needed. I checked with the regional principal in my area. There are 17 students at Lurgan and 39 students at Grandview that are benefiting from tutoring, and I just question why we would not find the resources necessary.
I think it's agenda item that we'd put on the next one? And
Well,
that
it would have to be on the next one because it's scheduled to be ending the end of February. Letters have already gone out to some parents, and other schools have the letters being drafted to notify people that the tutoring's going to end.
That's something that.
I might add that I had also gotten I had got, to piggyback on what you said, Faye, I had an email for a parent who was very distraught about this, very disappointed, and said that, in fact, they sent me a copy of the letter, and that it would be stopping in February, and that if they wanted to have any more tutoring, the person would be glad to, charge for that, would tutor for payment. But I guess I'm concerned that there wasn't enough budgeted in this area. I had hoped this program would go at least to the beginning of May. I just thought it always would. So I was surprised to find this out from a parent that it had been stopped. The thing of it is, if we wait, I don't know how we can do this, because you don't want if there's a way of keeping the program through the remainder of the school year, you don't want letters going out to parents that we're stopping and then letters going back and forth. Some are out, some are not out. I don't know how we can do that. We get back together on the 28th. I don't know. Dr. Long, do you have any suggestions?
I mean, like I said today to you, that we could do a request for a budget transfer, but also there's ESSER's money for next year. We could dip into that, but then we would be limiting for next year then as well. So another question, just so I think Mrs. Gogler asked how many students were being serviced. I have that number. It's 486 in the elementary right now. And the cost is right around $12,000, $12,500 a week for that tutoring. So if we were to extend it 10 weeks, so that would be $120,000. So that's what we're looking for right now.
Well, I had also mentioned that we had budgeted for 2 reading people, which we didn't get hired until a couple weeks ago. So, that salary money would still be there. I guess it would require a budget transfer. But like I said, I don't know how to work with this timeline. It would have been great if we would have known this was happening prior to, it wasn't until these letters went out and everything I didn't know that was getting dropped. I just think the education of our elementary kids has to be a priority issue. And I know we don't have unlimited funds, but again, when I think of 400 and some kids not getting their after-school tutoring, that's a hardship.
Do we have any data do we have any data that shows that it's really reaping benefits other than intuitive?
We do not have any firm data yet. I was going to be sending an email to the elementary principals in lieu of Mr. Woodman getting back, asking them to prepare some things that we can see that what they're doing is actually moving kids forward. And, we need that anyhow for, reporting purposes. So
What you're saying is there's not data in-house, but there's plenty of data that says that this kind of tutoring can be very effective.
Sure, that kind of, but in-house, we really need to make sure that what we're giving the students is actually paying off for them, and some tool that we can use, an assessment tool, can actually show that they're receiving the benefit from it.
Yeah, I'll express.
Well, let me ask you this:
support
did you evaluate the summer school program to find out how valuable that was?
The what program?
Summer school program.
We had a summer school program where we put out a lot of money, and did we evaluate the benefits of that? Or it's very hard. It's going to be very hard to define the benefits of this after-school tutoring because it all meshes together. But having small groups of children with a certified teacher after school, it's a no-brainer that there has to be benefits to that. I mean, you can't watch it and not know that there's benefits. It's just that it's very hard to define exactly, does that move that kid one level, or was it the classroom teacher during the day that moved that child one level? Or is it a combination of all of it?
It's a combination.
I guess, exactly. So it's hard to define the benefits of it. But if you go observe these lessons, you'll see that there's a lot of benefit to it.
Well, and even if we could extend it a month instead of 2 months, you know, I think anything that we can do to give the students more opportunity.
I'll express support for Faye's concern, and I'll just say, you know, if we're trying to figure out how to navigate this because of timing of board meetings, I think if we know that the majority of the board supports it, even if it hasn't been approved yet, that may be enough to halt letters from going out, that type of thing, even though it hasn't been formally approved. I don't know if we could do that or not, but.
We're not voting, but I think just the discussion, I've not heard anybody speak against it. We'd have to figure out
the logistics.
How
do we pay for it?
What's the impact then of it? Where does that money come from? What then was that earmarked for, or whatever that doesn't get done? So it's
a rob Peter to pay Paul situation.
Yeah. So which Paul's getting robbed, or what?
Well, and if the Paul is somebody that didn't get hired anyways.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Maybe it's fine, but
yeah.
Yeah, so you look at it that reading support we didn't get those people employed right after we had, you know, because it took a while. We didn't get them employed in the providing reading services. So we're just going to use that money to provide in this program because of the need. And, you know, we can't lose sight that our kids lost so much during COVID. And I know the teachers are totally feeling that in the classroom, and it's very difficult for them. And so, you know, especially at the elementary, it's something we have to really put as a priority, is my belief.
I won't even get on the soapbox about learning loss during COVID and school closures.
Yeah, but it wasn't the kids' fault. That's the situation, though.
I'm not even going to go there on that soapbox tonight. I think what we're hearing then is let's put something on the regular board meeting for next time. Hopefully you guys will be ready for that, but just as a separate line item on the topic of how to continue it.
Dr. Shore.
Yes. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Dr. Shore. I just have a couple thoughts, and I'm going to start with a comment. Welcome to being a volunteer public official. When you have people in the community that hang on every word and statement you make. So we get accused of micromanaging, and we get accused of not spending enough on children. So listen to this recent discussion, very good discussion amongst 9 responsible volunteers. And are we micromanaging, or are we thinking about children? Well, if you have a problem with it, put your name on a ballot and quit quacking like a duck. But my thought I'd like to share with the administration, and Dr. Shore, you mentioned these in your previous comments. Those comments you made about, you know, what's it look like, what are we doing in the data? That's the type of information we need as board members to make informed decisions. And when you get something like this, that then as a board member, you get blindsided a little bit from the public when you hear about it. And then, you know, we're public representatives, but, you know, those who want to poke fun at us just accuse us of micromanaging. But my question to the administration would be, and again, just using tonight as a good example, it's a program, maybe it's a cost saving measure that's the driving force behind it. But tonight, I'd like to hear the administration's recommendation. Get rid of the program or keep the program. And I'm fine with living with it, but I'm going to speak my piece also. I've used tonight as an example. So we're going to approve a $50,000 budget transfer for a van, but we're going to cut a tutoring program. It's going to cost $120,000 more. I mean, if that's the administration's recommendation, then I assume they're prioritizing the van ahead of the tutoring costs.
Well, and my concern is that we didn't even know that this was going to happen, and I'm sure that there are people who got those letters that are probably thinking the board chose to not fund this. And I get a little tired of being the whipping boy for decisions that I don't know anything about.
Exactly.
All right, so Kurt's, I'll say we don't have all the details to be able to go further tonight, but if there's specific questions that we want to have or make sure items that are included in what we have, we'll discuss on the 28th, and make sure you email them to Mr. Woodman and administration. All right.
So are they going to continue to send out letters, or are they not? That's the problem.
I think, as Mr. Aber mentioned, I haven't heard anybody that says this is just a stupid idea. So, I think the consensus here kind of, again, not a vote, but just sniff in the air is, let's try to figure out how to make it happen. And to me, then, that sounds like, I don't know that we'd want to waste or consume money sending out notices unless it's already been out, but.
Some are, some aren't.
So.
And I mean, if, I will look at the staff tomorrow as far as the principals and ask them if they have not sent anything out, please don't send us to date anymore. And for those, just hold on any communications concerning the tutoring until we get this solved.
I think minimally, if we don't get it solved, then we should probably commit to at least letting it go for another 2 weeks or whatever time frame, another month or whatever. But I think it sounds like we will figure out a way to get it covered until the end of the year, until Esther's money's able to cover it for next year. All right. Any other questions? Okay. Cal is adjourned. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.